47-year-old institution. This is actually the largest private lending library of LGBT materials in the country, if not the world, at least so we know. But this is a private lending library of over 28,000 books and DVDs, all of LGBT material. But through these library materials and our archive, we curate a series of exhibitions all year long. And with COVID, you can access tours and talks, curatorial talks of all of these exhibitions for free via Zoom. Many of them are posted on our website, they're posted on our YouTube channel, so you can explore the museum that way. So right now we're between exhibits. This is a show that opens December 4th. It's called Queers at Home, and it's about all the ways LGBT people manifest our private space as sanctuaries, as creative places, as unique places, and what are the similarities and the differences between LGBT people's homes and straight people's homes or cis people's homes. I mean, where are there evidences of culture? How, in a culture that is in some ways had to be hidden at certain times, or where it was unsafe to be out, you might lose your job or risk losing your kids. How do we behave behind closed doors in ways that affirm and uplift the narratives of our lives? And so all of these items that you can see from our archives, whether they are magazines or vintage advertisements or photographs of individuals, they've all been culled from our archive here at Stonewall. Whether it is their own experience as an LGBTQ person or a family member or a friend, some of this material is so deeply personal.
Right.
It's really important that not only do we provide an opportunity for people to learn about history, but that there can be an inspiring personal connection to this material too. And and again, why an LGBT museum? Why an LGBT archive? Because until very recent years, recent decades, and still, this material, if someone passed away, would be destroyed or was illegal or was hard to get a hold of. And so it's our charge to protect it and to create an institution that treats the material with respect and with dignity, and so that these stories can be retold and saved. So
yes, I agree. It's so important for people to come into a space like this, see themselves represented, because so often when you're coming out, you can feel really isolated, like you're the only person going through something, and something like this can be like, yes, there's people who've gone through what you've gone through, and look at what they've done and how they've made art or they've done this. So I think this is a really good learning experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The show now is it's called Life Letters, LGBTQ Expressions of Love. And these materials were all, again, drawn out of the archive, which I'll take you to in a moment. So keep in mind, as I've said, this organization's 47 years old. These materials reflect a range of experiences. Here, for example, is correspondence between two gay men, one of whom is incarcerated, and they wrote letters while this man was in jail here in Florida. Here's some artwork that was mailed between the two men that this gentleman had created. It tells a story of the connection between the two. Here is a letter penned by author Tennessee Williams talking about his relationship, and that's very interesting. You can read more closely, explains his relationship with Robert Carroll. And so you can read that there. Now, let's see. Here's a piece from Florida-born Alan Curtis, who is a fixture in Fort Lauderdale and also had a shop in Wilton Manors. He was an early AIDS activist. I'll take you through. This is a very interesting piece here. This individual, who is still alive and retired here locally, was a performer in the Jewel Box Review, which some of you might have heard of. It's a famous drag troupe that performed in the 1960s. This particular piece was taken in 1969. It was comprised of drag queens, one drag king, very famous drag queen Stormé Delaveree, and this is a telegram that was written by this person, Kurt Mann's parents and grandparents, congratulating them on their performance at the Apollo Theater.
Wow.
In 1968. So
yeah, how amazing to see accepting parents. so often when you think about our history, you think about the pain and having to hide. So it's nice to see celebrations from parents from that time period as well.
Yeah.
We want to see our joy.
Evidence.
Yeah, we want to see the joy as well as the pain. It's all important. That's great.
So follow me into the archives where you can see where we get all these wonderful primary source materials.
And the novelty, I love it.
Welcome to the Stonewall Archive. What you are looking at is 2,700. We measure archives in terms of linear feet. So this is 2,700 linear feet of material.
Wow.
I believe that's more than 6 million pages of material. So how do you conceptualize 2,700 linear feet? Imagine going up the Empire State Building and down the other side. So that's kind of like how much volume there is here housed. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Off the top, I would need to reference it. I think we have over 75 different periodicals housed in the serials collection alone. And certainly we are also a repository for things like documentary photographs, photojournalism, political campaign stuff, early newsletters, community newsletters, t-shirts, buttons, ephemera, certainly many records from multiple activist groups from all around the country. We do focus on American LGBT culture. So on this side of the archive are things like our serial collections. So the Bay Area Reporter, the Philadelphia Gay News, Passport Magazine, Drummer Magazine, Lesbian Tide, Lavender Women, all of these Curve, Deneuve, all of these materials over the years. Wow. And including early materials, so such as the Mattachine Society, a newsletter, and the latter of which we have complete runs of. So those two groups were among the very first LGBT, gay and lesbian, homophile groups of the 1950s. But before that was being discussed, or into the same time, we also have some of these early materials, which were physique men's magazines. This particular box is from 1951 to 1990. And this was a kind of a subculture way of circulating male erotic material at a time before it was even legal to talk about gay and lesbian subjects in the United States mail. And what's sort of funny is that these were packaged just as healthy, like athletic magazines. Good living and clean American masculinity. But really, it's definitely erotic material. And it's interesting. Some of these actually were printed with watercolor ink, so you could go home and take a tissue and remove the posing strap and turn the photograph and the magazine into a nude, which is pretty hilarious.
That's really high tech, actually.
Yeah. Human beings are resilient.
Yeah, the things that we do to get our erotic materials,
But so that's some of the earlier stuff. And here, of course, here is, we'll get a box. Oh, these are bound. Here's an example of what I was telling you, the Mattachine Review. These are from the mid-1950s. Materials like this.
It's really interesting as someone who's studied a little bit of LGBTQ history to see things you've heard about, only in theory, and to see it in real life is like really cool. That's amazing.
So this archive is available by appointment. We bring researchers in from all around the country. Here's a magazine that one of the things I love. Some of these files here are items that had a smaller run and don't require such a large box, or they were a shorter campaign. But here's a magazine. Oops, excuse me.
It's one for me. It's called Dyke Magazine.
Yeah, that was published in the mid-70s.
Animals and lesbians on the farm!
It's hilarious. There were only 6 issues.
Oh my God! For women? Oh.
There were only on the farm, at home as lovers.
My God!
There were only 6 issues of this magazine published.
I love it. What year is this?
This is 75, 76.
Oh my God! We were just talking about where are all the queer women, and I said they're at home, and Dyke Magazine confirms we're at home. That's where we are. So
wonderful. So we do collect T-shirts as well.
Oh my God! I know where to donate all my tie-dye shirts.
When you die,
when I die, you can archive all my gay apparel.
And certainly we do sometimes display these in exhibits in the museum. There are some a little less substantive than this kind of stuff. We don't make an effort to collect every gay T-shirt we can get our hands on. That would be impossible,
right?
Terribly. But we do try to complete collections of what we've got. So like the major marches on Washington, the Anita Bryant campaign in the 70s, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, those sorts of subjects. We also, let's see, have a great amount.
What's Calendars Lesbians? I'm intrigued.
Where do you see that?
Calendars Lesbians.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, we do get these kinds of things that were made by like local lesbian.
Oh my God, I love it.
So this is an example of something
gracious.
that would have been donated by Sage South Florida, obviously a local
Shirley's
women's
Girls.
group. I think they did this calendar for breast cancer awareness. These are the kinds of things that we would collect. It's an archival record of LGBT subculture here in South Florida. So, but of course our archive reflects the national imprint as well. And I should add, there are other gay and lesbian archives. There's the Gerber Hart in Chicago. There's the San Francisco History Museum. Certainly the Lesbian Herstory Archives in New York. And when we have material that we may already have a copy of, we're happy to get in touch and pass these things on to our colleagues in the field. Okay, here we go. So, in other areas of the country where there's a large LGBT population, residential, or as a travel destination, like think about Fire Island and Cherry Grove or Provincetown, we also will have these types of materials from guest houses or clubs or bars or arts exhibits. Particularly, this is Lynn Paletti's did an art show in 1980. This represents a gallery in Provincetown. Things like this. One of our upcoming exhibits, and you can find the schedule on our website, is a display of posters from the Club The Saint in New York City. And so we have a complete run of those posters. We'll be sharing some of those. But that's an example of some of the other material you can find with us.
We've seen some great things, gay and lesbian. What do you have as far as archives for the trans community as well? I know you have it, so I was just asking.
Yes. There's one in particular that comes to mind. We have, let me think for a second. It's a publication called Tapestry. And it's had many incarnations over the years. It was TVTS Tapestry, it was Transgender Tapestry. At one point it was just called Tapestry. So we have a good collection of those. I think that's some of the strongest that we've got.
That's
here.
the strongest?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
and actually, until recently we did have some of those exhibited out. You'll find, actually in the coming exhibit at Queers at Home, we've got some pages of transgender tapestry from the 1970s that we'll have on display.
Wow, okay.
Kind of as an example of, what were trans people doing at home. There are photographs inviting you to kind of, get a little snippet of your personality. People are kind of introducing each other. So, that's one example where we would use the archives like that in our exhibits.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that. That's great. What makes Greater Fort Lauderdale a destination for LGBTQ+ travelers?
It's you can completely, in my opinion, you can take up great space as an LGBTQ person. I identify as a transgender male, for example. I feel pretty comfortable being out. The trans community down here is very large. The gay and lesbian community down here is very large. There are certain parts of town where I even assume most people are LGBT or at least very comfortable. And so, some of this comes with some privilege, but there are various neighborhoods here in South Florida where you can simply be very out and open and be yourself and find plenty of affirming businesses that give it back to the community and self-sustain the community. And I think that's really important too. And that there's really a neighborhood local feel, a community feel that we're all in this together, and we have, created our own businesses and our own cultural institutions, and it's a great place to live and to visit.
Yeah, I love it. I was just so perfect. I'm like speechless. That was great.